With the 6th season coming out soon this year, Outlander is one of the most fan-acclaimed fantasy series on TV, and with the next season holding so many surprises and secrets, we can't help but ask a lot of questions concerning the aftermath and the future of the series. So what awaits us in the next season? Among the numerous questions we ask ourselves about the 6th season of Outlander, we handpicked the most important ones for you and made a list. So let's dive right into it. First up, which side of the American Revolutionary War will the Frasers and Mackenzies fight on? In season 6, the events take place in the year leading up to the Revolutionary War, and as much as we know that it will be filled to the brim with exciting events, fans won't see Claire and Jamie trying to change history this time around. They know what's coming, and would prefer to avoid the conflict completely. The war will inevitably find them though, and Jamie will no doubt be caught up in it. In addition to the coming war, another threat to Fraser's Ridge in season 6 will be possible retaliation from the Browns. How will the Frasers handle all of these threats? Making major changes to history is expected to have a butterfly effect, and Claire's invention of penicillin in the 18th century, changing the medical advancement timeline, will surely have some consequences. But instead, they'll be forced to take sides in this situation. Either that, or they might try to stay out of it completely. Jamie and Claire have Fraser's Ridge because of the British Crown, but they know that history is on the side of the American patriots, and America is Brianna's, Sophie Skelton, home. Will they continue to fight alongside the Redcoats when the conflict hits North Carolina? Next up, will Brianna and Roger Mackenzie ever return to the future? In the season 5 finale, during Will and Mackenzie's wedding, Bree and Roger realized they could not take their family back to the future in the 1970s, and despite their best efforts, they kept on failing. Seeing how desperate they were and how much of a hard time it was for both of them, we can't help but ask ourselves, what does this mean going forward? Will they finally manage to go back to their initial time, or will they, much to Roger's dislike, remain where they are and make the most of the past? Both scenarios sound convincing, however, we should only wait and see. Next on our list, will Richard Brown retaliate? Lionel Brown's brother, Richard, appeared in the last episode of season 5 and threatened Jamie when they came face to face. Following Claire's rescue, Jamie had captured Lionel, and the man was ultimately killed by injection at the hands of Marsali, who is Claire and Jamie's daughter-in-law and medical apprentice. In the final moments of Never My Love, Jamie delivers Lionel's body back to Richard. The latter then says, "You did what you must," before adding, "As will I when the time comes." As mysterious as it sounded, did it mean that more problems will come up? Is more violence on the horizon? Don't go anywhere, because we're about to find out more questions that we so impatiently wait to be answered. So stick around, and make sure to leave a like at the end of the video. Now, will the writers make more changes to the storylines to adapt the novels? Just like the rest of the series that is inspired by a book, Outlander does its best to match its source material, and stays very close to Gabaldon's books in some ways. But the writers and producers have had to make some changes to adapt the story to a visual medium, just like how Harry Potter and Twilight made some big changes to the script to make the visuals stand out more to the audience than leave the adaptation to suit readers only. For example, they kept Murtaugh alive until season 5, gave him a political storyline, and had him marry Jocasta instead of Duncan Innes, the man who marries her in the novels. Will we finally see Duncan Innes, or did that storyline die with Murtaugh? Next on our list, will there be another season after the 6th? As with every season, one overarching question will be whether fans can look forward to more episodes. Fortunately, there will likely be more than 7 seasons, since there are 9 books in total, and while the TV show doesn't always remain loyal to the original plots, there is certainly more content that could be used for future series, so there's a big chance we'll be getting 9 seasons. Caitriona even revealed recently that she would happily make more. Those decisions are sort of out of our hands, she told RadioTimes.com, but you know, I always have said, if we have good scripts and the story is interesting, then, you know, why wouldn't you want to continue on? So there is a huge chance that Outlander will go on for more seasons. Another question is, how will the Revolutionary War affect the others? We've already seen the Frasers encounter so many hardships and difficulties in the early battles of the American Revolution, but that leaves the question of how many more wars and events they will manage to witness in this timeline. It would be very exciting to see them interact with the very important historical figures like George Washington, who appeared in season 4. And will we be able to see more revolutionary moments? Hopefully. As we all know, Outlander isn't really that historically accurate, obviously, so anything can be possible at this point. Up next, will Claire's medical actions have consequences in the future? In season 5, we saw Claire use her 20th century knowledge of medicine and the effects of using penicillin in treatment to begin using it over a century before it was discovered. And as we mentioned, the show is indeed not going to shy away from changing major historical events like the invention of penicillin. However, when Claire came out with the medicine, Brianna questioned her decision of using the medicine that was technically new, as it could change the course of history forever and might create an alternative timeline. Another question on our list, how will Claire's kidnapping and assault affect her? As we saw in the last episode of season 5, Claire was kidnapped and sexually assaulted by Lionel Brown and his his men after he discovered she was dishing out birth control advice. The experience affected her mentally. She had to resort to daydreaming in order to endure such a terrible fate. However, after her rescue, Claire was visibly traumatized from the terrible act committed by Lionel and his men. It was clear that she will face some difficulty and need a lot of time to process and deal with what happened to her. Will Claire be able to get back to her former self? What effect will this terrifying experience have on the timeline? And will she be able to heal soon? Next, what will Claire's recovery be like? After we discussed how Claire's nightmarish encounter with Lionel and his men affected her mentally, and as we mentioned earlier, Claire forced her mind to recede into a fantasy world featuring many of her family and friends in a 1960s house setting, the dream turns into its own nightmare as she receives word of her daughter Bree's death. Fortunately, this isn't true, and Bree is alive and well. However, the assault she had to endure did shatter her emotional and physical strength. But as we know, Claire is a pretty strong character in the series, and it's apparent that she will get back to stronger than ever. But how will she heal from it, and in what ways? Lastly, what is next for young Ian? Jamie and Claire's nephew, Ian Murray, commonly known as Young Ian, was known for his iconic Mohawk. The young man has returned to the Ridge after his work with the Native Americans was done to free Roger from their camp after he was imprisoned there in season 4. However, Ian found himself fascinated with their culture and traditions, and even started adapting to their lifestyle clothing. Ian surprised his family by returning to the Ridge with his Mohawk and his new clothes, but we honestly can't complain that it looks good on him. But apart from learning that he has experienced a special love with their lifestyle, there isn't anything much known about his experience and interactions with the Native Americans. So, will we ever get a glimpse at what his life was like with the Native Americans? Will we ever learn more about his story? And will he stay at Fraser's Ridge or return north to the Mohawk? Only time will tell. So which one of these questions do you think will be answered in the newest season? And which myths will be debunked? Let us know in the comments down below. Also, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe with the bell on to get notified with our latest additions.